Hello and welcome to the final session of Solutions, and this really redefines the meaning of an all-star panel. With us today is Waheeda Rehman, Amitabh Bachchan and A.R. Rahman. Thank you all very much for being part of this session where we look at how Indian cinema can really be used as a global asset for India. And Mr. Bachchan, in a way I think more people around the world know who you, Waheeda ji, A.R. Rahman are than the Indian Prime Minister. Yet we see you as entertainment. How do you think we can leverage Indian cinema and the star power just on this stage?
You left out the main guy, he's still on his way.
The main guy is right here.
No, not really. Well, I think that cinema that used to be looked upon as something infra-dig in society 50, 60 years ago, people from good homes never acknowledged the existence of cinema, least of all asking us to go and join movies. Even when I was growing up, I don't know about Waheeda ji, but when I was growing up and a kid, my parents had to go and wet a film before I could actually go in and see one. But look how much it has progressed, and I just feel proud of the fact that we're all here today and we're at a panel discussion where cinema is being discussed. So it has had its share of importance. I was reading in one of the economic papers recently, and it said that this is perhaps one of the industries that has only grown. There's been no dip in it. And that, I think, is something to be very proud of. I think we didn't know the existence of our importance overseas. Yes, we knew that there were a few that watched us in India. But overseas, we never imagined how big Indian cinema was, Indian stars were, until we actually started going out to concerts, and during these private visits we discovered what a large percentage of the expatriate Indian watches us, and how because of time and because of the expatriate having friends within the community in the country that they live, how they've been able to expand their thought and their likes and dislikes to their friends, and that has grown. So now even people from that particular country, other than the expatriate, is also watching our films and enjoying it. So I think that that's really good.
And at Cannes, it was a celebrated 100 years of cinema. You spoke in Hindi there, and I think, again, that was a moment of pride for everyone there, of Indian cinema on an international stage, and unabashedly so. Why did you decide to speak in Hindi, and yet people applauded that?
मैं यहाँ भी हिंदी में बोल सकता हूँ अगर आप कहें तो.
ज़रूर.
I just felt that because they were acknowledging the 100 years of cinema, and I was associated with Hindi cinema, therefore the least I could do was speak in Hindi.
Waheeda ji, 100 years of Indian cinema, and you played such an integral part. Your movies, the roles you played still stand out today. What would you say when we look at Indian cinema and how it should be recognized globally as something India must be proud of across fields?
I think we are already proud of it, because today we are sitting here on this panel itself gives so much respectability to our profession. Yeah. And even when I started, much before Mr. Bachchan.
Amitabh.
Okay, Amitabh.
But you had an eye for talent because you spotted Mr. Bachchan then.
No, and coming from a Muslim family and down south people were still very conservative. तो मैं बीच में हिंदी में भी बोलने वाली हूँ. उसके बावजूद my parents allowed me to learn Bharatnatyam and to perform on stage. And when I wanted to come into movies, so I was very hesitant and scared, but they said, no, totally things are changing. It is like any other profession. So today we get a lot of love, respect from the people. So we have come to that stage to be respected like any other profession. And according to me, movies is an entertainment thing. But it's not our responsibility to make educational films or give education to them. But since we become very popular, become very big celebrities, so it becomes our responsibility to make films, where we can give entertainment as well as good message also for social causes.
Of course. And A.R. Rahman, again, I mean, it's always a hankering which comes up. After every Oscars, they asked, oh, why isn't India there at the Oscars? And I think everyone was so proud when we saw you singing on that stage as well. But there is a view expressed by some on the panel as well, that why do we need an Oscar? Indian cinema is so thriving, so vibrant. We're actually better than anyone else in the world.
I think we all respect every kind of art. I mean, I've grown with seeing Hollywood films, and there are certain things which we are in awe of what they do. And of course we have our own tradition, and our tradition awes them. The kind of dances and the kind of moral thing which we maintain in our movies. And so why not get an appreciation from some other things which we also grow up. Mm-hmm. I've seen Ten Commandments, I've seen Sound of Music, and in fact it's a kind of education which I got from these movies, the sensibilities which are now blurring between Indian and mm-hmm. and now I'm giving back. I'm doing a movie with DreamWorks animation, mm-hmm. Partly based on the Ramayana, and they're trying to make this movie as universal as possible, so our culture can go to the whole world. So it's a give and take, I would say.
Is that the way forward, sir? Indian sensibility, but universal in its appeal?
I wish there could be more of it. I just feel that we're almost a parallel culture for the rest of the world. And I don't know whether this is good for the country or not, but yes, there is a huge amount of recognition that is given to us. And, but we don't find that kind of formal representation that a country could do for the industry. There are lots of very intelligent voices, very intelligent minds that come into the film industry. And it would be really nice to see some kind of a film industry representation in a more ambassadorial capacity when the country itself is being represented in other spheres. To put it, give you a very bad example, would you remember what the last Indian spoke at the United Nations?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah, but you would remember the Sholay dialogue.
I would.
And you would remember the Diwar dialogue. And A.R. himself, in his speech when he got the Oscar, said, "Mere paas maa hai." So I'm just trying to tell you that, that if we are important enough for our dialogues to be remembered and an identity to be created worldwide on international platforms, why can't there be a greater representation? And does the system think about, putting some of us at least as representatives of the country in forums? Yeah.
In a sense, you are so much already brand ambassadors for India around the world, and the only other times, of course, and also when taxes are paid, there's always an Indian film star and an actor who's the highest taxpayer. So I think that's when we remember film stars beyond their dialogues. But I'd like to actually open this up for questions. So go ahead, anyone with questions? Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to ask you if you've pondered about the fact that how we represent women in cinema, how that is internalized in society. I mean, if we are going to degrade women in cinema, then those values are also inculcated in the young. So have you given some thought to how we can represent women in a more meaningful, a more realistic, more humane manner?
Yeah. Who's this to Waheeda ji?
Waheeda ji, why don't you answer? Because from Chaudhary Ka Chand to Halkar Jawani, what a journey.
I can answer it
but you can, and then Waheeda ji, go ahead.
Because Mr. Bachchan, you also have sung songs in certain, I don't want to go into details, but perhaps.
Yeah, sure. Firstly, ma'am, our profession is one that provides poetic justice in 3 hours. And you won't get this in a lifetime. I hope that you do, but I know that most individuals do not get that in a lifetime, maybe 7 lifetimes. So if there is any kind of atrocity that is shown towards women, we make sure that it is remedied, it is taken care of. The villain is always punished. Good will always prevail over evil. Yes, it's a very valid point that we must show women with greater character and strength. And there are many films that Waheeda ji has been involved in. and several other film artists. My wife is here, Jaya is here. She's worked in several films where the leading person or the main force in the film has been the leading lady. Nutan ji has done that, and Waheeda ji has done that, Meena Kumari ji has done that. And in recent times, we've had at least 3 films that have been made by women. Zoya Akhtar made a film, Vidya Balan made a film, where she was the most important person. So we can't really say that we are all the time degrading women. Sorry? That's right. And Revati from South, she directs movies and
Farah Khan.
Farah Khan makes films. So there is a huge change in the concept, and we have grown with time to make sure that we don't really deprave women as such. We don't necessarily go out depraving them. But if there is a portion where something needs to be rectified, we need to show what is the evil effect of it so that we can take care of it in the last reel or in the last 2 reels in the climax.
Waheeda ji, what would you say about how women are portrayed in Indian cinema now?
These days, I would say they are improving. Earlier, because it's always a boy meets girl and, a sacrificing bahu, things like that. But now it is different. And they are more broad-minded and to accept women doing anything. And now I'm really happy that what is happening these days is very good.
One other point I want to make is that over the years, when I started in 1969, the only lady on set was the leading lady and one other lady, the mother of the leading lady, or who's sort of as a companion that came on. But I'd like you to come to our sets now. At least 80% of the people working on the film are women. And they're all very young and they're very good. And they do all kinds of jobs. They're right from running a camera to looking after production to looking after costumes and hair, and of course is very normal. But they do production work, they do assistance, art direction, everything, and it's a very, very healthy sign.
In TV as well, luckily. But A.R. Rahman, sir, I wanted to ask you one thing. You often see that when you have people who are not from India talking about Hindi movies or Indian movies, they say, oh, it's all about this song and dance, and the actor and actress start singing even though a mother may just have died in a scene before, and then suddenly there's a dream sequence. So sometimes you see movies nowadays saying, oh, there won't be unnecessary songs, why add them? But many feel that that was so much part of Indian cinema, the music, the songs, the dancing around the trees. Do you think that is still integral, that when we talk about universal appeal, we need to be careful not to lose what makes our cinema so magical?
I was going to the airport, and so I asked the cab driver, where are you from? He said, in my country, Raj Kapoor is very popular. Guess, Russia. So most of the Russians know Raj Kapoor still, Raj Kapoor Samnam. And Mauritius, our man is really popular. And if you go to the 60s, and I keep watching her videos every week to get inspiration of such innocence and so beautiful. So, what is the question again?
I said,
It was about music, yeah.
it is about music, and do you think the song and dance is very much still a part of Hindi
I
movies?
think everybody wants to do that, but I think there's so much of criticism when they do it wrong. And we kind of do it in such grace that we get accepted. People love to see our movies. And it's true, because ours is an alternate entertainment for what Hollywood is doing. So I think we just have to push the boundaries. We have to go further. And another one thing I would want to mention is also distribution system. Hollywood has such a great distribution system. They go to every, I would say there are less Spanish movies made, Italian movies made, French movies, because Hollywood is dubbing everything. But Indian movies, they can't dub because our actors are we like to see our own faces. And that's the unique part of our industry, and that's a good part, I would say.
Yeah. I think that wherever Hollywood has gone outside of the United States of America, they've destroyed that industry, whether it's Britain or whether it's Europe, German, French, Italian, all their cinemas, they've destroyed it virtually. They're all coming back now again. They are here in India as well, but it's more the extravagant, special effects work that has done well. But they'll have a problem here because their culture doesn't match ours. The culture of Europe matched that of United States of America, so their stories were acceptable. But I think that the reason why they haven't had such a great penetration here is because our cultures are different. And on music and dance, and these are aspects that were always criticized upon by the West. Every time we went in the 60s, 70s, right on to the 80s or 90s, we were criticized and laughed at. But I think that all credit to the Indian film industry, we haven't changed. And now, no, seriously, and now that is the factor which they enjoy the most. So they've changed, we haven't.
I know, we've actually colonialized
Now, I don't
them
know whether
as well.
this is something got to do with the economic liberalization where they see India as a great consumer and therefore we must appreciate their food, their song, their dance, their film, their economics, but what used to be criticized earlier on is now being looked upon very gracefully.
Is now being celebrated in a sense. Jayaji, go ahead.
I think India has always had music on every occasion. Births, deaths, marriage, whatever. So I think it's a tradition that's been followed, and even now, in traditional homes in India, there is music and song for every occasion. And I think they've just modernized it a little bit, but it's been there, it's us, it's our culture.
Mm-hmm. But Jayaji, I have to ask, do you have a question for anyone on the panel?
No, I'm very happy with what they're doing.
Which is to say, when you get home, I'll ask you a few questions.
Go ahead, sir.
The question is that we have had a tradition, as you said very well, about music for every occasion. I'd want to know, why is the Michael Jackson routine, where does that come from Indian films, which is perpetually going on musically as well as in dance terms? What has that got to do with our civilization in any shape or form?
Has Bollywood created a culture of its own? I know you don't like that word, but
Yeah.
in a sense, Bollywood, which takes inspiration in quotes from a lot of places and makes it peculiarly its own, has that become a parallel culture as well within India?
I think that how long will you go on seeing the same, format, unless you're doing classical? And if you term it classical, then you have to consider it to its original form, whether it is dance or music or whatever. But I think we are now catering to a much larger audience. When you make a film in Hindi, it's more universal for the country, and it's more universal for the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And they like to see this kind of extravagance. And it reflects in the kind of attention that it garners. And therefore, perhaps this is one reason why we're not necessarily, copying Mr. Jackson, but, any kind of inspiration is. I know that some of our movements on some of these routines are perhaps unacceptable to many, but...
The pelvic thrust, the patented pelvic thrust is particularly Bollywood.
Yes. Fortunately, I've gone beyond that stage now, so you cannot accuse me for it.
But that same question, the Michael Jackson kind of music, the Michael Jackson kind of dance, originally, Rehman said that was part. You must have many people coming and telling that to you.
He's an extraordinary icon to the whole world, not only for India, for the whole world. And very few people reach that status. And I personally think that apart from the film industry, we need to develop, stage. Like there's no Broadway here, there's no Western theater here, there's no symphony halls here. So all these things would give so many jobs to our children, our future people. And it's done amateurly in a way. We don't have a musical like Lion King. We don't have a musical like Blue Man Group or, even the Bombay Dreams thing, I did in London and Broadway, not in India. So it's such a shame. We need to focus on those kind of things which would give so many jobs and so many dreams could come true.
On the culture of Indian film music, of the impact that Indian films have had on society and also on how India is conveyed abroad, do you find that as well, that Indian films have had a huge impact socially around us? The point raised earlier about how women are portrayed, but do you think there's also a positive impact of what Indian films are showing today?
Well, globally, I would say it has become very, very popular amazingly, just recently I went on a European tour, on a cruise. In Finland, we were walking around and I just saw Bollywood restaurant. I said, what? In Finland, Bollywood restaurant? So I tried to peep in to see who's the owner to find out whether he's an Indian or a Finnish. So nobody was there, so I took a photograph of that to say, yeah. And in London, 6 years ago, Rahman Saab's Bombay Dreams were being played, so I wanted to go and see. In London, English people are supposed to be, not supposed to be, they are very, proper, quiet, and not friendly, not warm. But 80% of the audience was English. After the show, they stood up and dancing with his music. I said, wow, how great, how wonderful, you see. So the music has become very, very popular. Even in South Africa, they say we don't understand the meaning, the words, but we like the beat and the tunes. And they just are dancing on the Indian music. So it has become very, very, very popular. So it makes you feel very proud. Though it's not classical, I understand, but the basic of the film music also comes, the foundation from the classical music, isn't it, Rahman?
Interesting, because of course in Slumdog Millionaire, Jai Ho became an anthem. In fact, even political parties used Jai Ho as an anthem. But people said, oh, the movie is showing a wrong side of India. It's too much about poverty, and this is not the India that should be shown abroad, and this is not a movie that we would like to see as Hindi cinema, would not have been made by an Indian director. What did you think of that, sir?
I think we were too sensitive about it. We also see gangster movies, we see bad movies of America's made. That doesn't mean that America represents that. And it's a movie after all. It's not. It's an inspirational movie, I would say. And at that point of time, America was going through this economic crisis, and for them seeing this movie, they felt connected so much because somebody from an underdog comes and wins this $1 million prize or whatever. And so I would take it at more as. I think more movies come in, and we will lose that, and we'll think about it on the same level.
Indians take the movies too seriously. We see sometimes the title of a movie or one stray reference becomes a court case, or it becomes a political issue, or people land up outside the theatres and say they can't go in. Why do you think, one level it shows how important cinema is, but also do you think sometimes soft targets? You made that point earlier about no formal representation in the system, but
I don't know whether I'm going to be thrown out of this panel after I give that answer, but I think television has a lot to do with it.
Other channels, you mean?
No, because you see so much of it, which was unheard of earlier on. Now it's a visual medium. You have, about 600 to 800 television channels in one country. That's unheard of in any other part of the world. In fact, if you put all the television channels of the entire world, you'd find them all in India. And where do you get the content from? Content is the main thing. You're desperate to have a channel running for 24 hours. And I guess these are events, these are happenings that you need to show to at least promote the content. And so if you don't see them, or if you don't show them, perhaps they would reduce. But I think the fact is that they sometimes deliberately do it just so that they can come on television.
Oh, so a bit of a manufacturer.
And we have our main speaker here.
I wonder
who will answer all these questions.
I wonder who that could be. Shah Rukh Khan, ladies and gentlemen.
And he should be asked all those questions that you've asked me.
Shah Rukh, why are the dark glasses on? We're inside the hall now.
They have the number also, but first thing, for globalization of Indian cinema, it's necessary actors reach on time. That's the main thing. So I'm really sorry. Waheeda ji, apologies. Amit ji, Rahman Saab, Sonia, everyone here. I'm really, really sorry. But there's too much traffic.
Shah Rukh, but we sent you a Lal Batti. You didn't get it.
Lal Batti?
You didn't get it.
They still do that in Delhi?
Only for constitutional authorities like you.
You elitist NDTV people. Oh.
We borrowed one.
Bhai, hum to common man hain Delhi ke. Hum sab ye use nahi karte.
But Shah Rukh, you're here, and Mr. Bachchan has been talking, Waheeda ji and A.R. Rehman, so now it's your turn. So why don't you go ahead and ask them, what do you think about the huge global impact of Indian cinema? I started by saying more people know Amitabh Bachchan, Shah Rukh Khan, A.R. Rehman, Waheeda Rehman than they know the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, Rahul Gandhi. So how do you bear that responsibility. Are you our brand ambassador for India, Shah Rukh?
Yeah. I'm just gonna, as soon as we decide which government is going to take place, I'm going to ask them for a fees also, because between me and Amiji, we don't do anything for free, as far as ambassadorship is concerned. Sorry, Amiji. But
we haven't paid you to be here today. You're free today here.
Oh
no.
ये तो media trap है, जैसे honey trap होता है वैसा media trap है. But seriously speaking, I think one of the things that I personally feel that I think the star system in any field, and we are talking about really big stars. I don't even come in that kind of count, and I'm not being modest. Someone like Amit ji or Rahman Saab, Waheeda ji, of course, and some others who are not present here today, but like Dilip Saab. And so many others in different fields. I think the star system is an extremely important part of globalization of any industry, not just the film industry. Because if you don't have a star system, and I'm not parrying for the fact that stars should be misbehaved, or whether it's an EPL, whether it is films, whether it is an industry, iron, whatever. I think a lot of it is personality driven, and you need personalities to drive it, especially in the media field. So it's a good thing that India has a very strong star system. One. But I think the one aspect that Indians as people, or maybe I noticed that only in the film industry, so I won't make it generic, I think what we lack is collaboration. All of us, when I see international films, you'll have a Peter Jackson, Steven Spielberg coming together for a combined dream of producing a film called Tintin, which they've grown up with. And they put in their best foot forward, they put in their best talent forward, they help each other out. I'm sure Rahman Saab is already doing that, because he's made such big leaps and steps and made us so proud all over the world now, collaborating with different artists. He's been doing it even in India, actually. But I think in the film industry, this whole talk of art and commercial has been from time immemorial, but it was still nicer earlier on, I think. When I was in Delhi and not acting in films, it was still called parallel. They were running side by side. Suddenly it became commercial and art, intellectual and stupid. And now it has been reduced to single screen and multiplexes. I mean, how much can you dumb this down, and how much more demarcation can you create? So what happens is that suddenly you have a commercial filmmaker or a commercial actor who will be somehow intellectual nahi hai. And there'll never be a collaboration. Suddenly you have an intellectual guy who meets a commercial person and says, "Arey yaar, he's corrupting me." That's not really true. The bottom line is to tell a story, to tell a song, to tell a lyric, to tell an expression. And I think unless we develop this in the Indian film industry within ourselves, a habit of collaborating with each other to enhance the art, the commerce, the whole idea of storytelling, I don't think we'll make even an inch into international cinema. We will never be able to globalize Indian cinema. And this whole thing of our films have a USP. हमारे गाने होते हैं यार 3 घंटे के होते हैं यार. If it is so unique, keep it uniquely Indian. And I'm not being harsh. No, yaar, it has to be 3 hours, we have an interval, our emotions are louder and we need to have... Please, you're going to somebody else's party, show them respect by dressing up in the way they want you to dress up. It's not a big thing. If I want to be in a tuxedo, I'm not playing Holi in it. So if you want to be on global cinema, you have to tell the stories you wish to, the songs, the music that you want to, the expressions that you want to express, but you really need to put it in the garb of what the world is used to. I think it is highly improbable and highly, I think, selfish of creative people in this country if we are not able to change ourselves according to the needs and the way they are used to watching cinema or any other kind of art form. Kafi bol diya sir ab to?
I'm a victim, actually.
You're a victim, why?
Okay.
Because I work in the Indian film, South Indian film industry, North Indian film industry, and Hollywood. So what's good for here is bad for them. We like background scores like da-da-da, da-da-da, and they don't like that. So let's keep it subtle, let's keep it drawn. No, let's not do that. Let the action speak for itself. So there are many things which a composer like me trying to do in India for the past 20 years. I have to switch sensibilities. Song sensibilities, same thing. But some of the stuff is common. I don't know how it is.
Jai Ho for
absolutely.
one worked.
In fact, Jai Ho was loved more than the by the West than Indians.
Mr. Bachchan was saying something slightly different for you came, Shah Rukh, where he made the point that how, in a sense, Hollywood has come and competed here, but Indian films have still ruled here. And also the point we were making earlier about Indian sensibilities still being very strong in our cinema, including the song and dance, etc., which people used to look down on earlier, and you said they now actually celebrate.
Yeah, I think it's very obvious that that facet of our cinema is always going to be different. It's going to be unusual. I think what Shah Rukh was saying was that perhaps we need to blend a bit of the Western effect just so that we can become more global. He and Karan Johar, in a very, large extent, to a very large extent, were responsible for actually bringing commercial cinema to the West to the dimension that it is now. As I said earlier on, everyone knew that they were there, but we were not able to exploit it to its maximum because of lack of information, lack of accountability. And I think that with Shah Rukh's films that he made with Karan and the way they marketed their product outside, that helped a lot. And that's perhaps been, according to me, that one changing point when Indian cinema suddenly became very global.
Would the lungi dance work here, and Chennai Express wouldn't work in the global sensibility then?
You see, I'm not saying that we should lose out the uniqueness of our storytelling, our culture. These are words which have been impressed upon us, imbibed in our DNA. And this is what we are brought up like, So Jai Ho is very, very Indian. It has a feel. You feel like getting up and saying this stuff. So there are a lot of things that are... We are very unique in storytelling, and we have great stories, and we are a great filmmaking nation, one of the oldest, and we're nearly on 100 years now, or just crossed it, maximum number of films and everything. But unless we are able to, address the issue, and you will see it internationally. Mr. Ang Lee would make a Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or the other way around, Hidden Dragon, Crouching Tiger. He'd make that film, and then it's not that they have stolen him away from China or the Oriental. They have realized that he can speak in the language and tell the story in the format they'd like to hear, but he'll go and make a Brokeback Mountain. He'll make a Life of Pi. So the idea is that our filmmakers, actors, except with the exception of, say, Amitji, who's, he could have been born anywhere, he would be truly international. I'm a fan, so I have to say this.
Thank you, Shah Rukh.
Yeah. And it's the voice. मतलब सर मैं कहूँ डिनीरो के सामने आप खड़े हो तो डिनीरो को भी कोई नहीं देखता सच्ची बात तो ये and but Rahman Saab, they have somehow been able to be open to that. Maybe it's their own travels, their own education, or understanding, or art actually doesn't have any boundaries. They understand it, they appreciate it, so they've been able to take that on. And so the whole idea is just the uniqueness should be retained, but there should be a whole formatting of our storytelling which is a little more international.